Thanksgiving used to smell like safety to me. I'm talking about that specific combination: roasting turkey, my grandmother's cornbread stuffing, wood smoke from the fireplace in the living room. Every year, from the time I was small enough to sit on the kitchen counter and lick the spoon, that smell meant I was home, that I belonged somewhere. My name is Cora, and I haven't felt that way in a long time. I'm 31 now. I work as a physical therapist at a clinic in Columbus, Ohio. I have a small apartment I'm genuinely proud of, a cat named Biscuit, who knocks things off shelves on purpose, and a life I built mostly by myself after things fell apart with my family. And when I say fell apart, I don't mean the slow, quiet kind of drifting that happens to some families. I mean, I showed up to Thanksgiving dinner 2 years ago, bags in hand, bottle of wine under my arm, and my sister-in-law opened the door, looked at me like I was a stranger selling something she didn't want, and said, "You're not on the list, Cora. We're keeping it family only this year." Then she started to close the door. I stood there on my brother's front porch in 30-degree weather and genuinely could not process what was happening. I had driven 4 hours. I had confirmed with my brother 3 weeks earlier. I had the text right there in my phone. "Yeah, of course, same as always, just come around too." And I was standing there at 2007 p.m. watching the door swing shut in my face while somewhere behind her I could hear my mother laughing at something and the football game on TV. I put my hand on the door frame, not to push it open, just I didn't know what else to do with my hands. "Renee," I said. "What are you talking about?" "My sister-in-law, my brother's wife of 4 years, the woman I had helped throw a bridal shower for, whose registry I had shopped from, whose hand I had squeezed during their first dance, looked at me with an expression I can only describe as practiced. Like she'd rehearsed this. 'This isn't a good time,' she said. I'm sorry." She wasn't sorry. You can tell, people who are sorry don't quite meet your eyes. Renee was looking directly at me. I looked past her into the hallway. I could see my aunt's coat on the hook by the door, my cousin's sneakers on the mat. Everyone was there. Everyone except me, apparently, was on the list. "Can I just talk to my brother?" I asked. "He's busy." "Renee, it's Thanksgiving. I know what day it is." And then she closed the door. I stood there for probably 30 seconds. Maybe a full minute. The cold was the kind that gets into your ears and makes everything feel slightly unreal, and I remember thinking, very clearly, that I must have done something wrong, something bad enough that my own family had decided to close the door on me. And I couldn't think of a single thing. I went back through the last few months in my head. Had I said something at Easter? Had I missed a birthday? Had I somehow, without knowing it, become the kind of person my family didn't want around? I picked up my bag. I picked up the wine. I walked back to my car, put everything in the trunk, got in the driver's seat, and sat there for a while with the heat on. Then I drove to a diner 20 minutes away and ate Thanksgiving dinner alone at the counter. Turkey melt on sourdough, a slice of pumpkin pie, decaf coffee, because I had another 4 hours of highway ahead of me. The woman working the counter, who had a name tag that said Dolores and silver hoops in her ears, asked if I was doing okay. "Just a weird day," I said. She nodded like she understood completely and refilled my coffee without being asked. That was 2 years ago, and for almost 18 months after that, I told myself some version of the story that made it my fault. I replayed things I'd said to Renee, ways I might have come across as critical or distant or difficult. I texted my brother a week after Thanksgiving, "Hey, can we talk?" And he replied 3 days later with, "Been busy, will call soon." He never called. I reached out again in January, then February. Then I stopped reaching out and waited to see how long it would take for him to reach out to me. 14 months. He called me on a Tuesday night in March, 14 months after I'd stood on his porch in the cold, and he said, "Hey, Cor. I feel like we haven't talked in forever. You doing okay?" Like nothing had happened. Like I had simply drifted away of my own free will. I said I was fine. I asked how he was. I listened to him talk for 20 minutes about a promotion he was up for and a renovation they were doing on the kitchen. And the whole time I was sitting on my bedroom floor with my back against the bed, trying to decide whether to say it. "Marcus," I finally said. Thanksgiving 2 years ago, Renee told me I wasn't on the list and closed the door on me. Long pause. Oh, he said. Yeah, I heard about that. She said you two that there was some kind of misunderstanding. A misunderstanding, I repeated. She said you'd gotten into it a few weeks before, that you'd said some things. I sat with that for a second. What things? I don't. She didn't give me all the details, Cor. Just said things had gotten tense between you two, and she thought it would be better if. Marcus, I have not spoken to Renee outside of family events in over a year. We were not in any kind of conflict. There was no misunderstanding. Another pause. Longer this time. I'm just telling you what she told me, he said. And that was the moment I understood that something much bigger than a closed door had been happening. I didn't yell at him. I didn't cry. I told him I loved him and that I hoped he got the promotion and that I hoped he got the promotion and that I talked to him soon. Then I hung up and sat on the floor for a while longer piecing things together, because that wasn't the first odd thing. It was just the first one that had a clear timestamp. I thought about the birthday card I'd mailed my mother 18 months before Thanksgiving that she'd apparently never received. She'd mentioned it to me in passing, almost apologetically, and I'd told her I'd definitely sent it, and she'd laughed and said the mail had been so unreliable lately. I'd sent a follow-up card to make sure she got something. I thought about the voicemail I'd left my brother before his birthday the year before Thanksgiving. He'd called back a week later and said he'd just seen my message. He hadn't checked that account in a while. I'd thought that was strange, but had let it go. I thought about the group chat for our family reunion that I'd apparently been removed from. I'd found out about the reunion 3 days before it happened, through a cousin who'd texted me separately to ask if I was coming. I'd assumed someone had accidentally taken me off the thread. Technology, I told myself. These things happen. I thought about the Christmas Eve video call I'd tried to join 2 winters back. The one where I'd gotten a message that the meeting ID was invalid, so I'd assumed I had the wrong link and sat in my apartment watching a movie instead. And then afterward my mother had said she'd wondered why I hadn't joined, and I'd said I'd tried and the link hadn't worked, and she'd said, "Oh, that's so strange." Technology, I kept telling myself. Misunderstandings. Busy schedules. But sitting on my bedroom floor on a Tuesday night in March, I started doing the math, and the math didn't add up. I called my cousin. Not someone I'm extremely close to, but someone I've always trusted to be straight with me. She picked up on the second ring and we talked for 2 hours, and by the end of that conversation I had a much clearer picture. It turned out that for somewhere around 2 years, Renee had been telling my family things. Small things, mostly. That I'd said this or that. That I'd been dismissive of my mother at a family event Renee had attended, that I hadn't. That I told someone, my cousin wasn't sure who, that I thought Marcus had married down. That I was jealous of Renee's closeness with my mother. That I'd sent a text to Marcus criticizing their parenting decisions. None of it was true. Not a single word. But it had been delivered consistently, quietly, over months, in the way that things get delivered when someone is patient enough to play a long game. A comment here, a concerned look there, a gentle mention at the right moment. My family hadn't turned away from me all at once, they'd been turned. What I couldn't yet answer was why. Renee and I had never had any significant conflict. We'd never competed for anything. I'd been happy when my brother met her. Genuinely, unreservedly happy. At the wedding, I'd given a toast that made 3 people cry in the good way. I had no history of friction with her. My cousin had a theory, and when she said it out loud, something clicked into place. "She's always wanted to be the only one," my cousin said. "The one your mom calls first. The one Marcus goes to. She's not a bad person in a big dramatic way, Cor. She just doesn't share well." I thought about my mother. I thought about how, in the 2 years before that Thanksgiving, my mom had started calling less. I chalked it up to her getting older, getting more tired, getting more absorbed in her life nearby Marcus and Renee. They lived 25 minutes from her. I lived in Columbus. Of course she'd be more woven into their daily life. That wasn't strange. That wasn't anyone's fault. Except, my cousin told me, it wasn't just proximity. Renee had volunteered to be my mother's point of contact for everything. Her doctor's appointments, her Medicare paperwork, her grocery delivery setup during a stretch last winter when my mom had been dealing with a bad knee. Renee had made herself indispensable, and in doing so, she'd also made herself the filter through which information traveled, and when you control information, you control relationships. I didn't do anything dramatic right away. I want to be clear about that, because I've seen enough of these stories where the person goes scorched earth immediately, and that's never been who I am. What I did was much quieter. First, I started calling my mother directly. Every week, same day, same time, Sunday mornings, usually around 10. If she didn't pick up, I left a voicemail and sent a text so she had it in writing. I told her I missed her. I told her about my week. Small things, real things. I stopped relying on group chats or forwarded messages or anything that could be intercepted or filtered. My mother, to her credit, always called back. And slowly, over months, our conversations got longer. She started mentioning things she'd heard about me from Renee, and then, more and more frequently, following them up with, "But that doesn't sound like you." She was starting to notice the discrepancies herself. I never pushed. I never said, "Renee is lying to you." I just showed up, consistently, and let the truth be self-evident. Second, I reached out directly to Marcus. Not about Renee, not yet. Just about us. I invited him to come visit Columbus sometime, just him, the way we used to do road trips together when we were in our 20s. He said he'd think about it. 3 months later, he actually showed up. We went to a Clippers game, ate too much bar food, and talked for 6 hours over 2 days, and somewhere in the middle of it he said, "I feel like I've been getting a weird picture of you lately." "Yeah," I said. "I know. Was it Renee?" I looked at him. "I'm not going to tell you what to think about your wife, Marcus, but I can tell you what's true about me." We talked until midnight. He cried a little. I cried a little. I cried a little. He drove home the next morning and called me from the road to say he loved me and that he was going to figure some things out. I don't know exactly what happened in that house over the following weeks. But I know that Marcus is not stupid, and I know that once someone starts looking for a pattern, they tend to find it. The moment everything came to a head was not the moment I'd expected, and it did not happen the way I would have predicted. It was at my mother's birthday dinner, a family gathering at a restaurant my mom loves, a mid-range Italian place near her house, where she always orders the chicken piccata and always insists on the tiramisu even though she claims she doesn't have a sweet tooth. There were about 12 of us around the table. I had been invited directly by my mother, who had called me herself 3 weeks out and said, "I want you here, Cora. I'm asking you myself." I dressed carefully that night. Not in an impressive way, just in a way that felt like armor. Dark jeans, a green blouse I've always felt confident in, earrings my grandmother gave me. Renee was already at the table when I arrived. She looked up and her expression did the thing it always did when she saw me in a context she hadn't controlled. A quick flicker, just a fraction of a second, before she smoothed it into something neutral. No one else would have noticed. I noticed because I'd been watching for it for months. Dinner was fine at first. It's always fine at first. My aunt was warm, my cousins were funny, my mother kept touching my arm when I said things and laughing in that way she has where she closes her eyes. I remembered why I loved these people. About halfway through the entrees, my cousin, not the one who'd helped me put things together, a different one, younger, made an offhand comment about a family group chat, something like, "Did anyone else see what Cora posted in the chat last spring?" He was trying to be funny. I hadn't posted anything in the chat last spring because I hadn't been in the chat last spring, and the comment died awkwardly in the air. "I wasn't in the chat," I said mildly. "You weren't?" He looked confused. "You got removed?" I wasn't aware I'd been removed, but yes. My mother looked up from her chicken piccata. "What chat? The family one? Cora, you weren't in it." "Not for the past few years, no." Renee said quickly. There must have been some kind of technical issue. "Those group chats are always, I've set up every family chat we have," Marcus said, from the other end of the table. His voice was level. "They don't have technical issues that remove specific people." The table got quiet in that particular way where everyone is still technically performing normal dinner behavior, but all of their attention has narrowed to a single point. My mother set her fork down. She looked at Renee. Renee looked at the table. Then my mother looked at Marcus, and something passed between them that I recognized even from across the table. The look of someone who has been suspecting something for a while and has just received confirmation they were right to suspect it. Renee tried to pivot. She said something about how things get complicated and there had been some tension and she thought it would be easier for everyone. Easier for everyone or easier for you, my mother said. She didn't say it harshly. My mother has never been harsh in her life. She said it the way she asks any question, simply, directly, wanting a real answer. Renee didn't have one. Marcus spoke up then. He told the table some of what he put together over the previous weeks. Not everything, but enough. Enough for my aunt to look at Renee with an expression I'll never forget. Enough for my cousins to go very quiet. Enough for my mother to reach across the table and put her hand over mine and squeeze it. Renee cried. And I want to be honest here. Watching her cry was not satisfying in the way I might have expected. It was just sad. All of it was sad. The years I'd spent wondering what I'd done wrong. The distance I'd put between myself and my family because I believed on some level that I deserved it. The dinners and calls and holidays that had happened without me and all the small moments of closeness that I couldn't get back. What I felt more than anything was tired. My mother walked me to my car after dinner. It was cold out, the real November cold, the kind that makes the parking lot smell like exhaust and frozen asphalt, and she held my arm the whole way. "I'm sorry," she said. "I should have called more. I should have noticed." "You notice when it mattered," I said. "I miss you," she said. "I miss you," she said. "I've been missing you, and I didn't understand why." I hugged her for a long time in the parking lot. She smelled like her perfume and a little bit like the garlic from dinner, and for a few minutes I stood there with my face against her coat and felt, for the first time in years, like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. I drive back to Columbus the next morning. My apartment is quiet when I get home. Biscuit is on the windowsill ignoring me with great dedication, which is his way of saying he's glad I'm back. I make coffee and stand at the kitchen window for a while, watching the street. Marcus called to check that I'd gotten home safe. He called again 2 days later, just to talk. He's been calling more since that night, not making up for lost time. Exactly, because you can't do that, but building something new. That's how I think about it. Not repair. New construction. My mother has a standing Sunday morning call with me now. She calls at 10 almost every week, and we talk until one of us has somewhere to be. She told me last week that she started keeping a journal, which she's never done before, and that she wrote about that night at the restaurant, about how she'd sat with something uncomfortable for months and had finally let herself look at it directly. I kept telling myself it was just family stuff, she said. Just normal tensions. I didn't want to cause trouble. I know, I said. I caused more trouble by not causing trouble. Yeah, I said. That's usually how it works. As for Renee, she and Marcus are still married. They're in couples counseling, which I think is right. I'm not interested in the end of their marriage. I never was. What I wanted was to stop being erased, and that part is over. I don't have a relationship with Renee, and I'm not sure I ever will, but I don't carry it like a wound anymore. What I carry instead is this: the memory of my mother's hand over mine at that restaurant table. My brother's voice on the phone from the highway, saying he loved me. My cousin's laugh on a long Tuesday night call, cutting through 2 years of fog. Family is not a fixed thing. It gets built and broken and rebuilt, sometimes in the same year, sometimes across the same table. Thanksgiving is in 2 weeks. My mother is hosting this year. Actually hosting, at her house, the way she used to when I was small. She called to tell me what to bring, and when I said I'd bring the cornbread stuffing, the kind from my grandmother's recipe, she made a sound that was almost like relief. I've made it every year, even alone. Even at a diner counter in November cold, I've thought about that recipe. This year, someone will eat it. The thing I keep coming back to is the diner. Dolores with her silver hoops, refilling my coffee without being asked on Thanksgiving Day while I sat at a counter by myself eating a turkey melt. I didn't cry in that diner. I didn't call anyone. I just sat there and ate my pie and drove 4 hours home in the dark, and I told myself I must have deserved it somehow. That's what I want to talk about, the somehow. Because I spent almost 2 years handing Renee's version of me back to myself and accepting it. Every unreturned call I explained away. Every group chat I'd been quietly removed from, every birthday card that never arrived, every holiday that happened without me. I filed all of it under my own failure. I wasn't close enough. I hadn't tried hard enough. I was too far away, too busy, too easy to forget. What I didn't understand then is that manipulation doesn't announce itself, it doesn't show up wearing a sign. It works slowly, through the channels you already trust. Family dinners, casual mentions, concerned tones from someone who seems like she's just looking out for everyone. By the time you notice the shape of it, you've already internalized half of it as truth. What pulled me out wasn't anger. It was clarity. The decision to stop explaining the gap and start filling it, directly, consistently, in ways that couldn't be filtered or intercepted. Sunday calls to my mother. A road trip with Marcus. Simple. Unglamorous, repeated contact with the people I loved. That's it. There was no dramatic confrontation I orchestrated, no revenge I planned. I just refused to keep accepting distance as my natural condition. And here's what I know now that I didn't know then. Dishonesty has a math problem. It requires constant maintenance. Every fabricated story needs to be tracked. Every false version of someone needs to be kept consistent across different conversations with different people over months and years. That's an enormous amount of work. And the longer it runs, the more places it can crack. Renee wasn't caught because I exposed her. She was caught because the truth had always been there. And once the people who loved me started looking directly at it instead of around it, they saw it. I don't think I'm especially strong for getting through this. I think I'm just someone who got tired of shrinking to fit a space someone else had decided I deserved. There's a difference between being humble and accepting a lie about yourself as fact. I confused those two things for longer than I should have. What I want for anyone listening to this is simpler than it sounds. Don't outsource your understanding of yourself to someone who benefits from you being small. Not to a sister-in-law, not to a coworker, not to anyone. You are allowed to show up. You are allowed to call directly. You are allowed to take up the space in your family, in your relationships, in your own life that was always yours. My mother has the cornbread stuffing recipe now. She asked me to write it down so she'd always have it. I did, and I mailed it to her, and she called me when it arrived to tell me it had gotten there safe. That call lasted an hour and a half.